Hey, I'm RC and welcome to the episode 12 about creating a game in HTML5. So if you haven't watched the last episode, then I will highly recommend you to do so by clicking the annotation on the screen. So this is the game so far, so we can control the player with the keyboard and we can also shoot bullet randomly by clicking. What I got in mind for this video is that instead of shooting in a random direction, it will shoot where the mouse is aiming, and we will also add a special attack that will shoot in a bunch of directions. Okay, so the first thing we will do is to introduce a new attribute to our player, which will be the aim angle, which will be 0 by default, and we'll need to update the aim angle when the mouse moves, so in the document on mouse move. So we already have the code in order to retrieve the mouse X and the mouse Y, and we will need to do some calculation to find out what is the angle the player is shooting at, so we can update the aim angle. So if you remember, if you have done some trigonometry, the function we are looking for is atan, which return the angle depending on the y and the x. So how it works in JavaScript atan2 is that you put the y, you put the x, and it will return the angle in radian though. And if you remember correctly, if we want to switch radian to degree, we do this code right there. So now in theory we should have the aiming of the player. Okay, so everything seems correct, but in reality there's a little bug, and it's, let's say that I'm here, I want to shoot at that position, I click, I want the bullet to shoot up right. But if my player is there and I haven't moved the mouse at all, it's still at the same position, and I click, I want the bullet to go down left. So the angle of the player actually also depends on the X and Y of the player. I cannot only take into consideration the mouse position, I also need to take into consideration the position. And in order to do that, we will need to subtract of the mouse X, the player X, and the player Y. Like this. So the mouse position is relative to the position of the player rather than relative to the origin of the canvas. Okay, so now that we have the aim angle, we will need to use it. So just a little recap, when we click on the document, so on the page, it calls this function, and it eventually calls randomly generate bullet. Randomly generate bullet, what it does is takes the X and Y of the player, and it generates an angle between 0 and 360. Now we want to delete that and instead use the aim angle of the player. So if we refresh and check it out, so we move around, if I click there, it shoots a bullet in that direction. So everything works. That's pretty cool. So yeah. So one little problem we have with the randomly generated bullet is that it only works for the player. If we want something else, it will not work. So instead of hard coding the player there, what we will do is that randomly generated bullet will take a parameter, which will be the entity, and actually it will be the actor. The actor will be the player and the enemies, while an entity can be a bullet, can be an upgrade, can be anything. So let's call it actor. So it will actually take the actor X, actor Y, actor angle, aim angle, and then it will shoot a bullet relative to that actor. So instead of calling randomly generate bullet, we will do randomly generate bullet shot by the player, like this. So nothing have changed much, and obviously if we do that, then we need to make sure that every actor, so player and enemy, have the attribute aim angle, otherwise it will not work. Even though the enemy right now does not shoot bullets, in the future they will do. So we'll need to add the aim angle to 0. Right now this is not being updated, obviously, but in the future it will be done. So now it will work. One other little issue we have is that right now we can only shoot bullet in the aim angle. There's no way for us to overwrite the angle at which a bullet is being shot, which is a problem if we want to shoot multiple bullets at the same time. Normally, if you want to shoot, let's say 3 bullets, there's the bullet where the player is aiming. There's another bullet, let's say 5 degrees more to the left of where he's aiming, and 5 degrees more to the right. So you can actually see the 3 bullets. So what we will do in order to make it possible is that we will add a new parameter, which will be optional. That parameter is optional, and if it's not equal to undefined, then the angle will be equal to overwrite angle. So this is a little trick you can do when you want something optional, sometime it's needed, is to test if it's equal to undefined. Undefined is a, let's call it a keyword. It's not really a keyword, but anyway. So if overwrite angle is not defined, so if I simply call this, then the overwrite angle is undefined. So this part of the code will not be called, so we will simply use the aim angle. But if I do that, so player 10, then this will become 10, this will not be undefined, and then the angle will be overwritten. So now that we have this system with the overwrite angle, we can create pretty crazy abilities. So what I got in mind is a special ability that will be triggered when the player right click. So if you remember correctly, on click is the left click. It only works for the left click. And there's another function called on context menu. I know the name is really weird, but this is the name. So on context menu, the parameters are the same. And this is called on right click. And what we will want to do, because it's a special attack, let's put 50, so it only works after waiting 2 seconds. And instead of randomly generating a bullet like that, what we will do is it will shoot in a 360. Well, let's do something simple for now. So it will shoot 3 bullets, the first one with -5 for the angle, the other one will be the regular angle. This is the equivalent of that, by the way. And right here, +5. So it will shoot 3 bullets and with 5 degrees between each of them. Now there's something special with the context menu you will see very soon. So if I right click, it shoots 3 bullets. So as you can see, it's kind of annoying because every time we right click, there's this pop-up, the context menu that shows up. Fortunately, there's a way to prevent that, and it's by calling the mouse prevent default. And by doing this, the context menu will not be shown. So every time you have in a game, every time you have on context menu, you need to call mouse.prevent default. Normally this, it's not being called mouse. I call it mouse to make it easier for you guys. Normally it's called an event, and it's event prevent default. But the two are exactly equivalent. Okay, so now I want to get really crazy. When I will right click, it will shoot a bullet in every possible angle. So one bullet will be shot at angle 0. So at angle 0. Another bullet will be shot at angle 1. Another bullet will be shot at angle 2, all the way to 360. So obviously we don't want to manually type all the possible numbers. So what I will do instead of doing that is using a trick called the for loop or the while. I will show the while. There's 2 ways to do it. I will show the while. It's a bit easier to understand, and then I will show the for loop. So first we will create a variable I, which will be our index. Actually, let's call it angle, which will be 0 by default. And while something we want to, I will actually write it down, and then I will explain it. Okay, so what this does is that as long as this condition is true, this code will be called. So first we got the angle set to 0. Is 0 less than 360? Yes. So we call that function angle 0, and then once this is done, we increase the angle by 1, and then we test, we go back up. Is the angle still below 360? Yes. And we keep repeating that until the angle becomes 360. Is 360 below 0? No. So it will stop. So by doing this, this is exactly the equivalent of that all the way to 360, but it's a lot shorter, obviously. So doing that kind of stuff, so initialization, then you test until a certain condition is false, and then you increase the initial value. This type of code is so common that there's a shorter way to do it, and it's with the for loop. So I know that we have already used the for loop earlier when we want to loop through every every key in a specific list, but the for loop is also used for that kind of stuff. So there's it's really different. I know the keyword is the same, but they are totally different things. There are still loops, but not really the same type. So in that case, we have the starting initialization. So for example, angle equals 0. Then we have the testing. So this code will be done until this becomes false. And then we have what happens, the increment at the end. So angle plus plus. So as long as this is true, this will be called. So those two are entirely equivalent. So we can delete those, delete that, and let's see how it looks. Right there. So if I'm here and I right click, it will shoot one bullet in a 360 angle. It looks pretty neat. And if I want, I could remove that. Instead of being over 50, it could be over 1. So if I refresh, and then I can spam click and shoot billions of bullets. It's pretty cool. So I guess that will be pretty much it about this video. I hope you liked it. And don't forget to click the annotation on the screen to go check out my next video. See ya!